Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. Ambazonia remains tense, resolute, and deeply burdened by the ongoing struggle for self-determination. From the Atlantic shores of Fako to the highlands of the Midland Zone, Ambazonians are navigating daily realities shaped by colonial repression, structural neglect, and systemic violence orchestrated by La République du Cameroon. While the peoples of Ambazonia continues to resist occupation on the ground, facing everything from militarized extortion to infrastructural abandonment, the suffering doesn't end at the borders. Displaced Ambazonians scattered in La République cities like Douala live in constant fear, vulnerable to targeted abuse, discrimination, and institutional neglect, with no real refuge in sight, even in exile. Now, today's reports offer yet another glimpse into the colonial regime's calculated cruelty, from weaponizing poverty and insecurity against Ambazonian civilian population to the alarming disorder and lawlessness that defies and defines La République's own internal systems. Whether it is the exploitation of vulnerable communities in Malende, the death trap roads of Malende, or the near-fatal accidents endured by the displaced Ambazonian brothers and sisters in Inyala all the way in Douala. The message is clear that Ambazonians are unsafe, unheard, and unprotected under colonial rule, both at home and in exile. But amid the chaos, the spirit of resistance remains unbroken. From peaceful protests to calls for accountability, the people of Ambazonia are rising boldly, courageously, and insistently demanding dignity, justice, and the full restoration of their sovereignty. With this, we'll head on to the prime headlines. And these are the prime headlines on Undaunted tonight. Monday goes down yesterday, May 26th. Still very much respected, no different. We see bad roads in Bamenda worsen amidst heavy rains and continued neglect. Malende rises against colonial police extortion, and displaced Ambazonians endure yet another blow in La République territory. On the African scene, 3 former Algerian presidential hopefuls sentenced in major corruption case. And on the global report, we see the attack on Israeli embassy staff in DC sparks outrage and reflection amid ongoing conflict, amongst others. And with that, we'll head into the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. Do stay tuned. Well, since its inception in 2017, the Monday Ghost Town has become a hallmark of the Ambazonian independence movement. Every Monday, residents in the Ambazonian territory are called upon to stay indoors. Businesses are shut down and transportations comes to a halt. This peaceful yet powerful protest is a testament to the Ambazonian government's ability to mobilize and unite Ambazonians in civil disobedience. While the Ambazonian State Army has once again demonstrated its influence in the former British Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, as the Monday Ghost Town of yesterday, protests remained widely observed, as the case with May 26th of 2025. Now, this latest demonstration of solidarity underscores the resilience of Ambazonians and the commitment to pursuing independence. Despite efforts by La République du Cameroon's government to quell the Ambazonian movement, the Monday Ghost Town continues to enjoy widespread support among the local population. Monday 26th was no exception, with reports indicating that the protest was largely respected across Ambazonia as everyone stayed indoors. Well, this ongoing support only highlights the deep-seated grievances and aspiration that drives the Ambazonian movement. The financial impact of the Monday Ghost Town phenomenon on La République du Cameroon's economy is quite significant. According to a 2019 report by the Cameroon Employees Union, the GCAM, the ghost town phenomenon has resulted in a 30% loss of workdays, translating to approximately 777.26 billion francs CFAs, around 1.3 million US dollars in lost wealth creation for the colonial regime. Well, this represents more than 4% of the national wealth loss. As the situation in Ambazonia continues to unfold, finding a peaceful resolution to the conflict remains a pressing concern. Dialogue, reconciliation, and a commitment to addressing the grievances of all parties involved will be crucial in moving forward. Yet the colonial regime has opted for a military option. The Monday Ghost Town protest serves as a powerful reminder of the need for a comprehensive and inclusive approach to resolving the ongoing war in Ambazonia. While Monday Ghost Town remains a protest symbol and a potent symbol of resistance and a call for independence. While still in Ambazonia, we see that not only do the protests go on the Monday Civil Disobedience Act of Monday Ghost Town, we also see the bad road continues to be a call for help within Ambazonia. The cry of bad roads has become an old song in the lips of all, especially in Malende. The situation is made worse with heavy downpour. The colonial regime has decided to punish Malende, stronghold of the resistance against colonial administration, with bad roads. Well, Malende, the capital of the Midland zone of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, has long been plagued by poor road infrastructure. The city's residents have grown accustomed to the familiar sounds of potholes, traffic jams, and the struggles of daily commuting. But then when you take a look at the video on screen, you ask if that is something that anyone can truly get used to. The situation has become increasingly dire, as is obvious, with heavy downpours exacerbating the already deplorable state of the roads of late in recent times. We see residents in Malende continue to battle this worsening road conditions, with the recent rains turning already deteriorated roads into hazardous zones. Heavy downpours have deepened potholes and flooded streets, making daily movements difficult for drivers and pedestrians alike. In several areas, stagnant water has formed large pools in the middle of major roads, resembling lakes and posing serious risk to the road users. While the issue of poor roads in Malende is far from new, locals have long complained about the lack of investment in infrastructure, despite the taxes they're forced to pay to the colonial coffers. Many point to the city's role as a center of political resistance, suggesting that what they describe as colonial administration has intentionally sidelined Malende in development priorities as well as other Ambazonian counties. Transporters and commuters say journey times have doubled. While vehicles damaged and road accidents are becoming increasingly common, pedestrians are often forced to wade through muddy waters or walk along unsafe edges. Now, community leaders and residents are once again calling for urgent intervention. They're demanding immediate rehabilitation efforts and sustainable road projects to prevent further deterioration and even more accidents. Many in Malende view the crumbling roads not only as a logistical crisis, but also a part of a larger grievance over decades of political and economic marginalization. It is obvious what the roads in Ambazonia have turned into, with different vehicles getting ruined and going bad because of the terrible state of the road. But that is not all in Malende. I guess Ambazonians have had enough and say enough is enough this time. In Malende, the people of Malende in Muyuka local government area of Fako County in the Atlantic zone of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, they have risen once again in peaceful defiance of the colonial oppression imposed by La République du Cameroon. Well, on Tuesday, May 27th, fathers, mothers, and children took to the street, marching with peace plans in hand to the Colonial Divisional Officers' compound, demanding an end to what they describe as unbearable extortion by colonial gendarmes. The community says life under occupation has become intolerable. Farmers returning from their own land are compelled to settle control, a coded phrase for illegal bribes, before passing through checkpoints. Transporters, traders, and even school children face daily harassment, with colonial forces arbitrarily fixing amounts on goods and services without any legal basis or accountability. There is no negotiation, they dictate, and we suffer. And these are the words of an elderly woman who told this to correspondents. Now, they extort our produce, our money, even our dignity. The peaceful demonstration was a clear message to the colonial administration that the people of Malende reject the presence of extortionist forces in their land. Protesters called on the colonial DO to relay their frustration to the colonial authorities and to inform their superiors that Ambazonians in Malende no longer welcome their occupying forces. This is not an isolated cry. Across the entire villages, towns, and cities in Ambazonia, the story is one and the same. Colonial brutality dressed as law enforcement, but Malende has lit a torch of resistance, one that must now spread across the rest of Ambazonia. Let the people of Tiko, Boya, Kumba, and beyond take courage from Malende. The voice of the people is stronger than the gun. When the oppressed stand united, the walls of tyranny tremble. The message from Malende was crystal clear that no more extortion is allowed, no more occupation. Ambazonians will no longer pay to live on their own land. Oh, well, still in Ambazonia, we see that Ambazonians endure a hot blow traveling to La République due to the displacement caused by the war that has strived for 8 long years now. Well, we see that displaced Ambazonians continue to bear the weight of a war that they never asked for, and a life in exile that offers no safety. From homes bulldozed without warning to arbitrary arrest, kidnappings, and extortion by colonial forces, to daily discrimination and threats by La République citizens. Ambazonians who fled to La République in search of refuge remain targets in a system that views Ambazonians as disposable. In yet another display of colonial recklessness and disorder, several southern Cameroonians narrowly escaped death in Nyala, neighborhood of Douala, after a timber truck overturned and crashed, blocking the road and endangering pedestrians, especially Ambazonians. Now, a man sustained injuries while trying to escape the chaos, but thankfully no lives were lost. The incident occurred just 5 days after Ambazonians in Douala were forced to endure La République's May 20th colonial show of force, a reminder of their continued subjugation even in exile. Eyewitnesses say the truck was moving in broad daylight despite repeated La République claims about daytime bans on heavy-duty vehicles. There is no order here. One survivor lamented, saying the same government that hunts us in our homeland can't even protect us in their own cities. This is not an isolated case as always. It is intentional, from police extortion to where Ambazonians are detained and asked for ransoms by corrupt officers. to violent attacks and systemic marginalization, life in La Republique has become a daily battlefield for southern Cameroons, and this latest accident or incident only underscores not just the physical danger, but the institutional collapse within La Republique, a state unable to protect its own residents, let alone displaced populations. Now, if La Republique cannot guarantee the safety of people on its own streets, what moral ground does it have to lecture Ambazonians on unity or integration? Well, the people of Amazonia continue to say displacement is not peace, safety is not found in exile. Until Ambazonians can return to a free homeland, they will remain vulnerable in a lawless and crumbling colonial system that has shown nothing but disdain for the lives of Ambazonians. Oh, well, and with that, we'll head on to the news around Africa. Do stay tuned. On the African scene, we see a growing nutrition crisis unfolding in Somalia as international funding cuts cripples essential child health services. Now, the sharp reduction in financial support has forced many nutrition centers to shut down and led to the layoff of critical health workers, leaving thousands of vulnerable children without access to life-saving care. Health facilities like Banadir Hospital in Mogadishu have seen a drastic and dramatic surge in admission, treating over 500 malnourished children in just the past 2 months. UNICEF reports that 15% of Somali children are currently suffering from acute malnutrition, with nearly 500,000 facing the most severe form, which carries a high risk of death. Now, according to humanitarian agencies, the situation has become dire since the cuts took effect, halting vital services such as therapeutic feeding, medical drug distribution, and nutritional supplements. The result is not just a strain on hospitals, but a nationwide emergency where families are left with no safety net. Now, experts warn that unless funding is urgently restored, Somalia could face a full-scale nutritional catastrophe, one that will continue to claim young lives and reverse years of humanitarian progress. Well, now on to Algeria, we see an Algerian court has sentenced 3 former presidential candidates to 10 years in prison each for corruption-related charges. Businesswoman Saida Negza, former Minister Belkacem Sahi, and veterinarian lab executive Abdel Hakim Hamadi were also fined 1 million dinars, approximately 6,700 euros each. Now, the convictions come months after all 3 were disqualified from contesting the September 2024 presidential election. Algeria's constitutional court had previously rejected their candidacy, citing allegations that they secured endorsements from elected officials through illicit payments. In August, prosecutors revealed that 50 elected representatives admitted to receiving money in exchange for supporting the trio's bid for office. Now, the eventual election was won by incumbent President Abdelmajid Tebboune. The trial, which exposed a broader network of corruption, resulted in the conviction of around 70 individuals. Amongst those sentenced were 3 sons of Saida Negza, who received jail terms ranging from 5 to 8 years for charges including money laundering and aiding and abetting. Now, despite the sentences, Negza, Salih, and Hamadi left the courtroom free and have 10 days to appeal the verdict. Well, we head on to global news. Well, the tragic killing of two Israeli embassy staffers in Washington, D.C. last week has left the diplomatic community stunned and sparked wider conversations about the irrationality of targeting innocents in the name of political causes. Sarah Milgram, 26, and Yaron Lishchinsky, 30, were gunned down near the Capitol Jewish Museum after a diplomatic event. The shooter, Elias Rodriguez, reportedly shouted, "Free Palestine," during the attack. Now, authorities are treating the incident as a hate crime and investigating potential links to extremist ideology. Now, while the Israeli-Palestinian conflict continues to weigh heavily on global consciousness, the murder of an unarmed and non-combatant diplomat far from the battlefield raises serious moral and diplomatic concerns. What message does it send when civilian ambassadors of peace and dialogue become targets simply because of their nationality? Do such actions advance the cause of Palestinian liberation or undermine it by fueling division and hate? Well, Rodriguez reported justification that Israel's action in Gaza warranted revenge mirrors a dangerous logic seen far too often. The belief that collective punishment of any people, whether Israeli or Palestinian, is somehow a path to justice. But the question lies, how does killing young professionals who had nothing to do with military decisions or territorial disputes bring peace or dignity to Palestine? Well, Homeland Security Secretary Christine Nguyen also delivered a statement on behalf of former President Donald Trump, expressing deep condolence to all the victim families and condemned the violence. Trump emphasized the need to safeguard diplomatic communities and denounced anti-Semitism in all its forms. Now, this is not the path to freedom for anyone. The statement read, "Targeting innocents only widen the rift and hardens hearts." Now, while some activists argue that desperate times call for desperate measures, the vast majority, moral majority of the world agrees that violence against innocents is never justifiable. The aspiration of the Palestinian people to live in freedom, safety, and dignity are legitimate and deeply humane. But those goals cannot be reached through bloodshed aimed at innocent people with no role in the conflict. The death of Milgram and Lishchinsky are a sobering reminder that extremism, no matter its banner, poisons the very justice it claims to seek. As the world watches the Israel-Gaza war rage on, one can only hope that both sides and their supporters choose diplomacy over vengeance, humanity over hate, peace for Palestine and peace for Israel, but not through the barrels of a gun. Well, here's a video of the United States Homeland Security Secretary conveying Trump's condolence for those lost Israeli embassy staffers. Take a look.
President Trump extends his greetings and his grief to all of you, and he stands with you as we fight this hatred in the world and know that Yaron and Sarah's lives will be of significance and will matter and will bring a unity among us that will help us defeat our enemies.
Well, still on the global reports, we see that President Trump has led the Memorial Day observance at Arlington, honoring America's fallen with patriotic resolve. President Donald J. Trump presided over this year's Memorial Day ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery, now delivering a solemn and deeply patriotic address in honor of the men and women who gave their lives in service to the United States. The event, attended by top officials including Vice President J.D. Vance and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, reflected the weight and reverence of the day with all the symbolic traditions America has long held dear. The president participated in the ceremonial laying of the wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, a hallowed site that represents all American service members lost in war whose remains have not been identified. Standing before rows of white headstones that stretch across Arlington's green fields, the president addressed a somber audience of Gold Star families, veterans, and fellow citizens. In a speech, Trump expressed profound respect for the sacrifices of fallen heroes, casting their memory as central to the soul and identity of America. Well, let's take a look at the video.
We'll be joined as well by Chairman Kane, terrific military person. We gather today to honor the incredible service members who rest in glory in this cemetery and burial grounds around the world and in 1,000 lonely places known only to God. In every hour of peril and every moment of crisis, American warriors have left behind the blessings of home and family to answer their nation's call. They've offered all that they had within them and given their last breaths to each and every one of us that we might live safe and breathe free. This morning we pay tribute to their immortal deeds. We share in the sorrow of their beloved families, and as one nation we give thanks for the ultimate gift they have so selflessly given to all of us. These warriors, and that's what they are, as great, great warriors, picked up their mantle of duty and service, knowing that to live for others meant always that they might die for others. They knew that. They asked nothing for it. They gave everything, and we owe them everything and much, much more.
Well, as you hear, he painted a picture of a nation built on valor and forged in freedom, one that owes its greatness to those who paid the ultimate price. His remarks emphasized America's legacy as a noble and exceptional republic, one whose survival and strength rest on the shoulders of generations who served selflessly. He also spoke of national renewal, aligning the legacy of the fallen with the continued efforts to rebuild and re-energize the American spirit. Framing this as a mission in progress, Trump underscored that the sacrifices of service members must be met with a determined effort to make the nation stronger, freer, and more united. Well, throughout the event, military honor guards and veteran organizations stood in formation as tributes were paid. A moment of silence was observed, followed by the playing of taps, echoing across the grounds as a haunting and respectful close to the formal ceremony. Well, Trump's appearance at Arlington was indeed remarkable, and not only a gesture of presidential duty, but a reaffirmation of traditional American values, courage, service, sacrifice, and patriotism. His presence and words resonated with many as a call to remember that the freedoms enjoyed today were secured through blood, struggle, and undying devotion to the country. Now, as the day unfolded across the nation with flags lowered to half, staff and families gathering around memorials and cemeteries, Trump's message from Arlington served as a reminder that Memorial Day is more than a long weekend. It is a sacred national pause to reflect, honor, and rededicate. Well, with that, we'll take a look at the ongoing war in Russia and Ukraine. We see that Moscow and Kyiv have ramped up aerial assaults in recent days, with both sides launching record numbers of drone strikes across contested and border regions as hope for renewed peace talks faced continued uncertainty. The surge in attacks followed one of the heaviest aerial offensives of the war. Ukraine reported that Russia launched over 350 drones and missiles on Sunday night alone, killing at least 13 people. The Ukrainian Air Force claimed to have intercepted many of them using both missiles and electronic warfare systems. Strikes across central and southern regions, including Dnipro and Kherson, caused injuries and damage to homes and infrastructure. In response to the escalation, the United States President Donald Trump made strong remarks on social media, questioning Russian President Vladimir Putin's decision-making and expressing concerns over civilian casualties. The Kremlin dismissed Trump's comments, attributing them to what it called emotional overload amid rising international tensions. Well, Russia has also reported intensified drone activity from Ukraine, claiming that its air defense shot down nearly 100 drones on Tuesday alone. Now, most of them over the Belgorod region, according to Ukraine. Now, according to the Russian Ministry, on the other hand, the Russian Ministry of Defense said over 2,300 Ukrainian drones were intercepted between May 20th and 27th, including many in areas outside active combat zones. Now, despite the ongoing exchanges, Moscow claims it is finalizing a peace proposal. However, it accuses Kyiv, backed by certain European countries, of taking provocative steps to obstruct negotiations. With both nations locked in retaliatory operations and diplomatic rhetoric intensifying, the path towards de-escalation seems to remain unclear. While tensions also are not just in the Ukraine-Russian territory, but reported between Trump and Netanyahu over Iran's strategy amid broader Middle East trade. With a recent report suggesting that a phone conversation between the United States President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu featured notable disagreements over how to handle Iran's nuclear ambitions. Now, according to Israel's Channel 12, the discussion, while officially framed as cooperative, was marked by differing approaches. Trump reportedly emphasized his preference for a diplomatic solution and expressed confidence in securing an agreement beneficial to both parties. Netanyahu's office, however, denied claims of tensions, reiterating that both leaders are aligned on the shared objectives of preventing Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. Meanwhile, United States Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, visiting Israel on Trump's behalf, underscored the urgency of the situation and described her conversation with Netanyahu as unusually direct and emphasized the need for Israel and the United States to remain united as negotiations proceed. Now, according to Noem, the current United States administration remains committed to peace, but firmly opposes any future where Iran possesses nuclear capability as diplomatic discussions continue. Tensions in the region remain high, worsening humanitarian conditions with thousands gathering at aid distribution centers amid ongoing conflict. Now, according to Gaza's health ministry, over 54,000 people have been killed since the war began. In the United Kingdom, opposition leader Kemi Badnoch has drawn criticism for likening Israel's action in Gaza to Ukraine's resistance against Russia, referring to it as a proxy war in the United Kingdom's interest, a statement that has sparked debate amongst political and, of course, public circles. With regional conflict escalating and diplomatic dynamics shifting, the challenge for leaders remains how to balance national interest, international alliances, and the growing humanitarian cost of prolonged unrest. Well, with that, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight. But before we go, let's take a look at the recap of our major stories. On Undaunted tonight, we brought to you the Monday ghost town that is still very respected, and Monday, May 26th, was no different. Bad roads in Malende worsened amid heavy rains and continued neglect of the colonial regime. Malende rising against colonial police extortion, as well as displaced Ambazonians enduring yet another blow in La Republique's territory. And on the African scene, we saw 3 former Algerian presidential hopefuls sentenced in major corruption case. On the global scene, attack on the Israeli embassy staff in DC sparks outrage and reflection amid ongoing conflict. We also saw President Trump leading Memorial Day observance in Arlington. Well, that was it for tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. On behalf of the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for joining in, and we'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night, and God bless you.